Ladies and gentlemen, the World Endurance Championship is back, and we've got a new hypercar team joining for this weekend at the 6 Hours of Monza, Peugeot. So, of course, with that, we'll have a lot to talk about for today's first practice session from Friday at Monza. So let's go ahead and get into essentially just talking about the results. So there's only one practice session today. There's no other running on track, which is why I'm making this video so early. But in that session, the fastest out of anyone in the hypercar class, and of course overall, was GLICK, the number 708, who actually managed to put a 137.984 lap out. Second fastest was Alpine, the number 36, with a 138.602. Third fastest is the new Peugeot team number 93 with a 138.802. Fourth fastest is the number 8 Toyota with a 139.120. And fifth fastest was the number 7 Toyota with a 139.287. Now, if you're wondering where the 94 Peugeot car was, they were actually 20th overall, behind all of the LMP2s with a 141.522. It seems like they didn't exactly get a representative lap out. They were doing different running, I guess, than everyone else. And, of course, there's no 709 GLICK this weekend, or really in general. They're not going to be running that car outside of the 24 Hours of Le Mans, so that's a Le Mans only entry. So a couple of things to note in this practice session that I think reflect some BOP changes that we've seen recently. So Alpine had their BOP changed. They got a little bit more engine power back from Le Mans, and they're starting to get back closer to where they were at Sebring. Of course, a little bit less, so they're going to be closer to everyone else, and it's going to be fair. I think what we've seen with these BOP changes looks like it's pretty even across the board. GLICK also got a little bit more power. They went from 920 kilowatts to 933 kilowatts, which it seemed like they had a 920 kilowatt barrier for engine power that they've finally essentially gotten rid of, so that GLICK can get a little bit more power, which at a track like Monza is definitely going to be beneficial. And honestly, I think makes sense, because it seemed like GLICK had essentially maxed out their car for what performance they were going to be able to get, and at that point still looked like they were somewhat down on performance to the rest of the field. I think giving them a little bit more engine power is definitely beneficial, can help close the performance gap. As we've seen, fastest in session. I wouldn't be surprised if this race ends up being somewhat like Sebring, with the Toyotas at least being not dominant. I definitely wouldn't be surprised if Toyota leads practice sessions and even ends up going out and winning the race. But as of right now, top 3, 0 Toyotas. So again, might be a little bit overconfident here, but looking at, first of all, what we've seen with BOP changes, and second of all, what we've seen with one practice session worth of results here, looks like Toyota at least is going to have a run from their money from teams like GLICK, Alpine, and, to an extent, Peugeot. Now, of course, considering we only got a representative time from one of the two Peugeots, I think we're going to have to see more tomorrow, probably. Well, tomorrow's really where you're going to get a representative time, because you'll have, practice sessions and qualifying tomorrow, and then, of course, the race on Sunday. So I don't think there's many assumptions you can make based off of Peugeot being third right now, especially considering the 94, further down there. It's hard to make a definitive, statement about how Peugeot's doing right now, but at least they are in the pack. They're not, a second and a half quicker than everyone else, and they're not a second and a half off everyone else, at least one of them. You've got one of their cars is slotted there right in the middle of the hypercars. Looks like at least you're not having a massive BOP fail and Peugeot being way to one side of the spectrum on pace. So looks like that's good. And honestly, again, from what we've seen out of, current BOP rules, it looks like this is going to be a pretty decent representative race for everyone. It seems like performance is pretty much even right now, other than maybe, considering Toyota is 4th and 5th, they might actually have a little bit too much BOP. So honestly, if I was to make a BOP change right now, the only thing I would do is maybe give Toyota, I don't know, a little more power or something. It's Monza. That's probably where you're going to get the biggest benefit, you know, another 5 kilowatts or something, because it looks like they're slightly down on pace. But that's about the only thing I would even consider doing, and again, that's just a consideration. I think there's not anything massive that it's like, well, yeah, this team has gotten screwed this week so far. So, looking pretty good all around for Hypercar BOP. Now, speaking of Hypercar, I was obviously talking about Peugeot. I'm going to go ahead and show you just a video of the new Peugeot. This is a lap around Monza on the number 93 car. So yeah, I'll just go ahead and show you guys that video to kind of, you know, just give you an idea of how the car looks, how it sounds, stuff like that with an onboard cam. So, just, I don't know, impressions out of that. It looks, sounds, and seems to race like, you know, all the other hypercars. So, I'd say I always like just seeing those onboards to see if there's anything weird about how the cars sound. One thing I didn't notice is that I didn't hear a lot of hybrid sound, despite it being a hybrid car. That's one of the funny things about certain cars is they sound very electric at certain points. This car, I mean, really most of the time I feel like I'm just listening to a, you know, naturally aspirated, you know, V8 or something. So I'd say car sounds cool, and yeah, that's Peugeot. So next thing I'm going to talk about is we're just going to go down the class list here, and then I'll give a little bit more detailed results from each class. Of course, GLICK, fastest of the hypercars with a 137.984, as I had already said. Fastest in the LMP2 class was the AF Corsa number 83 Ferrari, which actually was fastest, of course, it's a Pro-Am car, but was fastest in the LMP2 class overall. I've got the Real Team car marked as the fastest in P2 because I needed something to put there. But Real Team was the second fastest P2 time and the fastest non-Pro-Am time, though AF Corsa 83 is... The way Pro-Am works, it's part of P2, but it's also separate. It counts as, you know, the P2 fastest time, whatever. Second fastest in P2 and fastest non-Pro-Am car, 140.222 from the Real Team car. Of course, AF Corsa, that time wasn't set by a AM driver, that was set by their pro driver, one of their pro drivers. So in terms of race stuff, the number 83 is going to end up behind all of those full pro lineups because the AM driver has to drive for a decent amount of time. So stuff like that. Actual race things, I don't think the AF Corsa car is going to end up being, you know, competitive for a win in P2. But, you know, it's where they are right now. I think they won a pole earlier this year, so in P2. So that 83 car is still decently fast when it's not being driven by the M driver. Anyways, I've rambled on about that for too long. In GTE Pro, the fastest was the number 92 Porsche, and fastest in GTE AM was the number 56 Team Project 1 car. So, first thing I'm going to talk about, I guess I'll talk about GTE Pro, just kind of looking at this. Looks like a bit of a random spread here, honestly, looking at how the results go. We've got Porsche, number 92, fastest. Second fastest, number 52, AF Corsa. Third fastest, number 64, Corvette. Fourth fastest, number 91, Porsche. And fifth is the number 51, AF Corsa. So kind of spread all over everywhere, and overall spread within a little over half a second. The number 92 Porsche, of course, was fastest with a 147.2, and the number 51 AF Corsa has a 147.8. So 0.6 of a second separating the entire GTE Pro field. That looks decently competitive from, what we've seen so far. There were certain races earlier this year where either through, some type of BOP difference or something else, it was generally AF Corsa was a lot slower. But obviously, considering the 52 was just a few tenths off of the fastest GTE Pro time, looks like there's a pretty even spread throughout the GTE Pro field. Of course, looks like Porsche has a little bit of an advantage, but that's about it. Looks like pretty competitive in the GTE Pro field. I'll go back to LMP2 and talk about results from that. Of course, fastest was the number 83 AF Corsa car. Second fastest, as I had said earlier, again, the number 41 Real Team by WRT car. Third fastest, which is somewhat of a surprise, the number 34 Inter-Europol competition car. Generally, they're a little bit further down, but it's cool to see them up there. Fourth was the number 9 Prema car, and fifth, the number 22 United Autosports car. So, I guess it's interesting to see Inter-Europol up there. Again, this is one session, and it's the only session you've had today, so it's hard to make confident, this team's going to be at the front declarations this early in a weekend. Honestly, if you're going to make an assumption, I'd say make it Saturday. Don't make any big assumptions today. But it is interesting to see, starting to get some small ideas of performance. It's interesting to see that Inter-Europol is up there, I guess. Looking at other things in the P2 field, Jota is quite far down. They're 7th and 12th, I believe that is. Just quick count. In the P2 field, generally considering they're one of the top most competitive teams, somewhat odd to see them that far down. Again, can't make a very definitive performance, declaration like that this early. So that stuff just to continue to watch throughout the rest of the weekend. Moving on down to GTE AM, you've got the fastest, of course, was the Team Project 1 number 56. Second was the GR Racing number 86 Porsche. Third, the Team Project 1 number 46. Fourth, Spirit of Race number 71 Ferrari. And fifth, the number 21 AF Corsa Ferrari. Again, these are pretty decently close times. Looks like the GTE AM field is pretty decently close, looking like 1.2 seconds thereabouts, separating the entire GTE Pro field. So it looks like pretty close competition for now. Of course, GTE AM, is a bit of a mixed bag, just considering, you have AM drivers and pro drivers doing different things at different times, and throughout the race, you can have guys moving up and down just depending on who's driving the car. And in general, I'm just not very well versed in the competition aspect of GTE AM. It's a bit of a smaller, not smaller, but it's harder to understand sometimes. But you've got a couple of Porsches at the top there, and then a couple of Ferraris. So that's my best description of GTE Pro right now, or I keep calling it Pro. AM. That's my best description of what's going on in the GTE AM class. right now. So, trying to think of what else I have today. That's about all I have. Just general overview stuff. Looking like the hypercar field is pretty close. Looking like Peugeot's decently competitive. That baby blue Glickenhaus car looks absolutely amazing. That's about all I have to say. So, yeah. I guess that's about all I have. Last thing I was going to talk about, you might have noticed on the results cards, I used different car images. Those are actually from Matthias Groziak's Spotter's Guide from the spotters.guide website. I'll have a link down to that in the description where you can download the unofficial 6 Hours of Monza Spotter Guide. I personally am a bit of a, Spotter's Guide nerd, and I think the images he's done, they look great. I really like those. So I was just going to try that out for this. But yeah, that's about all I have. First day at Monza. Of course, it's only one session, so it's hard to get much of a, idea of anything past just some general times. But looks like it's, I don't know, just decently promising so far with the way things like Hypercar are looking. So that's about all I have. Thank you guys all so much for watching. I'll, of course, have a video out tomorrow covering all of the running for tomorrow. We'll have qualifying stuff. We'll have some more practice stuff to talk about. And I guess just continued analysis on kind of who's where at Monza this weekend. So thank you guys so much for watching. I said that like 4 times. I will see you all tomorrow. Bye.